Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast, energized by Celsius, the official energy drink of pewterreport.com. Want to say hello to all the Pewter people that will be watching this show as we have a very exciting episode, as our very special guest joining us in a little bit is Bucs Ring of Honor member and Hall of Fame member Tony Dungy. It's creamsicle week, so no better time to have on one of the most important figures in Bucs history who coached a lot of those creamsicle Buccaneer teams. I'm your host, Matt Matera. Joined with me is the face that runs the place at pewterreport.com, SR Scott Reynolds. And before we get to Tony Dungy, who will be joining us, let's remind everybody that the Pewter Report podcast is energized by Celsius, the official energy drink of pewterreport.com. There is no sugar, no post-energy drink crash or jitters that you get with another product out there. So if you need to know where to find one, go to the Celsius store locator, pick one up. It'll tell you your geographical location where you could find one at your local Walmart, Target, convenience store, or your bodega.
Bodega.
And if you need to get more, get it in bulk. I'd recommend the variety pack because variety is the spice of life. And there's so many awesome flavors. You could have it go to Amazon, do the subscribe and save. You can have it sent to your place of residence whenever you want, every week, month, quarterly, yearly, whenever you want it. Just make sure you're drinking Celsius energy drinks, the official sponsor of the Pewter Report podcast. And we have one more case of Celsius to give away for free to the Pewter people. Scott, why don't we talk about yesterday's winner that we are about to announce and how you can win some free Celsius?
Well, yeah, the awesome people at Celsius have given us 3 free cases. We've already given away one. Now we're going to give away a second one. That's to Paul, a.k.a. Florida Dreamhouse, for his $5 super chat. Roses are red, violets are blue. My Celsius of choice is orange. How about you? That's very creative. As Matt kind of told you guys on Monday and also on Wednesday, humor always works. That's always good. We had a great question on Monday. So it can either be a really thought-provoking question, and that question was, what does Baker Mayfield have to do at the minimum to get a second contract in Tampa? And Paul opted to go with a little bit of Celsius poem here. It was cool, and so we appreciate that. Plus all of Paul's contributions and everybody else too. Super chat or not, we love the Pewter people. You guys are fantastic. But we have one more case of orange Celsius to give away, and in order for you to do that, all you have to do is super chat us today. It could be any denomination. It could be $1.99. It could be $2, $5, $10, $20, $100, however much you want to give. That's fine. And that will automatically enroll you into the chance to win a case of orange Celsius. And we'll have the winner of today's show announced Sunday night after the Bucs Lions game on our post-game podcast. So make sure you stay tuned for that one as well to find out if you won. And we've had about 20 super chats each day, so it's been awesome. And the great thing about the super chats is, listen, we don't have enough time in 1 hour to get to all of the great comments and questions that we get. We try to put some up that aren't super chat related, of course. But Matt, we do have a rule, and the super chats get, they get first place. So first priority. We get to put you up there first, and you guys deliver. I mean, super chat or not, your questions and comments are awesome. It's honestly one of the best parts of this show. Yes, we like to deliver the news straight from one Buccaneer place to you guys, give our thoughts on the upcoming game, react to the game, etc. But it's about the interaction with you Pewter people. We love you guys, and you guys are some of the smartest Buc fans around.
Yeah, a ton of great questions. A lot of thought-provoking questions as well, whether it's on the current team, the future of the team. You guys always bring the heat. So we're very excited to find another winner, which, as Scott mentioned, we will announce on the Pewter post-game show on Sunday. Hopefully, we'll all be celebrating a Buccaneer win. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Another chance to be a winner as yesterday's winner that we announced moments ago, Paul, a.k.a. Florida Dreamhouse, says, "Thanks, guys. Looks like I am going to be energized by Celsius big time." Yes, you are.
Yeah, our own Bailey Adams, he's going to super chat us to replenish his Celsius supply. That's awesome. Appreciate it. Gregory Smith, welcome. First live Pewter Report. Woo! We appreciate that.
Very happy to have you, Gregory Smith. Thank you for tuning in and watching. Great show to start tuning in for, because we will have Tony Dungy on later in this episode.
Yeah, I like Rich Bish, Rice Bish. That's what I get for not wearing my glasses. Can't read. Yo, really, Coach Dungy? That is awesome. Let's get it PR. Yes, we're overdue for a guest, and I thought, okay, I talked to Tony at Rondé Barber's Hall of Fame induction ceremony in Canton back in August, and he said he would come on and do the show. Just kind of a matter of finding what time was best to have Coach on. And boy, Matt, it makes perfect sense. This is a former head coach of the Buccaneers that turned this entire franchise around, brought them back to respectability, introduced the Tampa 2 defense, and really ushered in all of the Hall of Famers that are part of the Hall of Fame now, with the exception, of course, of Leroy Selman, right? I mean, we're talking Warren Sapp, Coach Tim, Coach Derek Brooks, Coach John Lynch, and Coach Rondé Barber. Actually drafted Rondé Barber. So why not this week when the Bucs are playing the Lions? Tony had his battles in the NFC Central Division back when there was such a thing against the Lions. It makes perfect sense. Matter of fact, the Bucs' first win in the playoffs since like the 1983 season, I want to say, was in 1997 against the Detroit Lions in the last game at the Big Sombrero. So we'll talk to Tony about that one as well.
And I was about to say something else, but we got a super chat from Big July. Thank you to Big July for the $10 super chat. You are now eligible for a chance to win a free Celsius. It says, longtime viewer, first live show. Love the show. Keep up the great work.
Appreciate it.
Go Bucs. Thank you very much, Big July.
That's awesome.
For the very kind words and the super chat. What I was going to say is, yes, the creamsicle was an old school thing, but the players are really adhering to it now. They're very excited about it. We've heard from Devin White. We've heard from Antoine Winfield Jr., Carlton Davis, a lot of different guys, players on offense as well, just how excited they are. And another person that is super, super excited, someone that Tony Dungy knows quite well too, is offensive coordinator Dave Canales. And Canales, we call him the human Celsius. He was more excited than anyone else. He comes up to the podium today, and he's rocking the creamsicle, and it's matching the creamsicle backdrop, whatever you want to call it. And he spreads his arms out, and he goes, "Oh, can you guys see me? Can you guys see me?" And he just had such joy and exuberance to it. I'll play. It's a quick video, so I'll play it really good.
Blending right in.
How are we doing?
Good. How are you?
Oh, doing great. Always good to win going into the bye because you stay a winner for 2 weeks. So Coach taught me that a long time ago, and I was sticking with it. So we had a good time. My parents are in town, and we're running around, going to flag football, volleyball, soccer, the whole thing. So what's going on?
He has such joy and utter fascination with even like the simplest of things, and it just makes it so much better to interact with him every single week.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Another super chat here. Scott and Matt are much more handsome than Brady and Gabbert. So did I win?
You're putting yourself in a good situation.
Yeah, but you're a liar. So we're not gonna disqualify you. We're not. Okay, we appreciate that comment. That's pretty clever. That you're in the running for sure.
Yes, that's clever for sure.
But if we're being honest, I'm no Blaine Gabbert, and Matt's just not Tom Brady. That's just a fact. So.
Damn.
I will say this though. So we do appreciate the super chats. We got some rolling in. I will say this: we only have Coach Dungy for about 20 minutes, and we're gonna kind of try to push it to 25 minutes because that's what we always do. He's like, we'd love to have you on the show for 30 minutes. So we tell a Buccaneer guest. It always ends up being like close to an hour. Yeah. Coach Dungy does kind of have a hard out today, so we have him for about 20 minutes. And he is actually at One Buccaneer Place right now doing something for the Buccaneers. The minute he's done, he's going to jump in. It could be 4:15. It could be 4:20. It could be 4:30. But somewhere between now and 4:30 is when Coach is expected to join us. So just hold off on the super chats. There will be some time at the end of the show. If Matt and I have to do a little overtime today, over an hour, we will, because we got to take care of you people. All right. But we do have some questions we want to get to with Coach because we're the journalists and we feel like we have good questions. Not that you guys don't. But
and what's also
if we had an hour-long show, we would probably open it up to a lot of fan questions, but it's a kind of a finite period.
And what's cool about having Tony Dungy on is, yes, there's so much history about him coaching this team, but he's also had a post-coaching career working for NBC. So he's very in tune with what's going on in today's NFL. So that's why it'll be really great to get his opinion, thoughts, and analysis on this upcoming matchup on Sunday between the Bucs and the Lions, which of course are two teams that only have one loss on the season and are in first place in their respective divisions. So there's a reason why this game got flexed to 425.
Yes,
the NFL wants a lot of eyes on this game, partially because the creamsicle jerseys is on, but this is a matchup between two pretty good teams to start the season.
Yeah. Before I forget, Nathan, I'm going to be at the stadium. Probably, I'm going to be entering the stadium about an hour and a half before kickoff. So what is that? That's let's call it 4:30. I'll be there at 3:00. I can meet you outside at 3:00 to sign the Pewter Report jersey at Gate D, which is where the media entrance is. It's on the south west side of the stadium. Okay.
There you go.
All right, we have another super chat here from Paul. A super chat and Celsius toast to the PR crew and Bucs fans. Browns destroyed my joy of NFL, and the Bucs PR and Baker have renewed it. We win 11 plus this season, boys. That's great. Yeah, that's the fun thing.
I like the optimism.
I do too. And Matt, that's the fun thing about this market is sometimes it's a little angst, ridden because a lot of the Tampa Bay fans here that grew up in this area, there were some dark days before Tony Dungy got to Tampa Bay. There was like a 12-year window where it was like the dregs. It was bad. And then unfortunately, after John Gruden left, there was also another decade-long, 11-year span of really bad football between, well, let's just name them, the Raheem Morris years, the Greg Schiano years, the Lovie Smith years, the Dirk Cutter years. Then Bruce Arians finally gets here in his second year, wins the Super Bowl with Tom Brady. So there's like 2 whole decades really where, if you're a kid growing up in Tampa, you probably didn't like the Buccaneers because they were a bad football team, I happen to know someone. His name is Logan Reynolds, my son, who's a Ravens fan. I took him to training camp practices, to Bucs games, everything. And they didn't win. And, kids like to gravitate towards the winner. So I get it. But it is fun to see, Matt, some of these people pour in from other cities.
Yes.
And, whether it's Boston, Chicago,
and a
New
lot
York,
of Oklahoma
Philly.
Now.
Yeah, right. Exactly. A lot of Oklahoma Sooner fans, right, for Baker Mayfield. But to see them kind of pour in, and whether the Bucs are, their favorite team, or they just latch on to them as like, well, they're my AFC or my NFC team because I like an AFC team. It's cool to see a lot of new Buccaneer fans that are transplants because of their new surroundings.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's really cool too, and it's just fun to see, is that this team is showing toughness and showing that they're not just going to lie down just because Tom Brady is not here.
Yeah.
And, I don't want to compare exactly the Patriots to the Bucs. It's a little bit different situations, but we've seen how the Patriots have looked in the post-Tom Brady era.
Yes.
Their first season in the post-Tom Brady era, bringing in Baker Mayfield, and so far, so good through the first 4 games of the season. And that generates a lot more excitement. And, it keeps the positivity going on the team, where, remember, there was a lot of doubt about the Bucs, but they have brought it this season. Now nationally, everyone's starting to rah the Bucs. Baker's, college game day and making appearances. So, people may have thought that the good times were going away, but not just yet. This team is at least competitive, and they're going to make every opponent earn every single yard, whether on offense or defense.
Yeah, that's right. As Christopher Cole says with the $1.99 super chat, it's going to be a creamy day for the Lions. Yeah. I'll tell you what, it was a wet day today in Tampa. Holy smokes.
Yeah.
There was some thunderstorms rolling through in the night during the day. I believe the weather forecast, I got to check it now because it changes every 5 minutes in Florida. But I think as it stands right now, the weather forecast for Sunday is supposed to be pretty nice weather because I think these storms get out of here. Yes. As of right now, sunny, no clouds, 81 degrees in Tampa, probably right around kickoff, right? Because 3 or 4 o'clock, that's the hottest time of the day. And then it's supposed to get down to a chilly 69 degrees at night. So fall is here.
You can wear a sweatshirt or something.
I know.
for those Floridians.
Exactly. So, Matt, let's talk today about some of the news that happened at the Advent Health Training Facility, otherwise known as One Buck Place. So we get fans caught up. We're waiting on the injury report right now from the Bucs and the Lions, but were the Buccaneers out there for a little What, 5 minutes out in the rain, and then they moved inside today for practice?
Yeah, they were outside originally, but then as the downpour came, they moved everyone into the indoor facilities. So a little bit of scrambling, a little bit moving and shaking. Did not see Mike Evans once again, but that was kind of to be expected. I mean, Todd Bowles said yesterday that Friday is really going to be the big indicator for whether or not Mike is going to be available for Sunday's game. Everything else was relatively status quo. We spoke to Jamel Dean today, so obviously he looks like he's on the right track to play. Really, the big question is Kalijah Cansey is one of them because, yes, he fully participated yesterday. He was out there again today, but the calf injury is such a fluky, finicky type of thing. And we actually spoke to Kalijah Cansey yesterday. We heard it straight from him about would he be available? Is he, how much is he chomping at the bit to come back? And this was his response to it.
Just going through the recovery process. It felt good to be out there with the team today. And I'm just still evaluating the injury, seeing how I feel.
How do you feel right now?
I actually feel good.
You think you'll be ready to go on Sunday?
We'll see. With the calf, it's kind of a tricky injury. You never know, soft tissue injury. You never know.
Kalijah, how much are you just chomping at the bit to get out there? I mean, you had a taste of NFL action in week 1, but, just getting back out there, how much are you ready to go?
I'm anxious. I seen what I was able to do on the field when I got out there, and I want that feeling again. I want to go back out there and make plays.
Has it been frustrating at all, just knowing, like, you're just entering the NFL and you still gotta wait your time a little bit?
Yeah, at first, but I just had to accept the role of embracing the suck. I know it's guys that got this game taken away from them, and I'm still able to recover and get back out there. I still have a chance. My first soft tissue injury, it's kind of hard to deal with, whether you don't know if you're actually hurting it or helping it, and that's what I'm going through as of now, not knowing if I'm doing too much or not doing enough.
Yep, Scott's muted.
There we go.
There we go.
Speaking of injuries, the injury report just came out, so let's get right to it. Shaq Barrett, like me, has a cold, and he did not participate. I didn't go to one Buck place. He didn't participate. Jamel Dean, as Matt said, was a full participant, as was Servassier Dennis, Kalijah Cansey for the second straight day, Ryan Neal for the second straight day, Anthony Nelson for the second straight day, and Derek Pitts and Devin White as well. Also, Luke Gedeke, that calf is on the mend. He was a limited participant on Wednesday, but also was a full participant today. Mike Evans did not participate on Wednesday, but he did in limited fashion today. So Mike is on the mend, as Matt said. And as it comes to the Detroit Lions, these are the players that did not participate. Brian Branch with an ankle, Jamar Gibbs, the running back, with a hamstring, Jonah Jackson, the starting guard, with an ankle, Zonovan Knight, the backup running back, with the shoulder. Sam Laporta did not practice today with a calf injury. That's new. He practiced on Wednesday. That could be a very interesting injury, something to watch because he is a big weapon. The rookie second-round pick already has 3 touchdowns, including 2 last week. So that's kind of a significant injury right there. We'll have to keep an eye on that as Sunday draws closer. James Mitchell, the other backup tight end, has a hamstring for the second straight day, did not participate. Emmanuel Mosley, the cornerback, did not participate. Frank Ragnow had a rest day. He's the starting center. He's an older guy, so they gave him rest day. Amon-Ra St. Brown, though, the receiver who missed last week's game with an abdomen injury, he was limited participant on Wednesday. He did fully participate today, as did Taylor Decker, the starting left tackle, with an ankle injury. He was limited on Wednesday, full participant today. So really, better news for the Lions, although they'd love to have Brian Branch and Jamar Gibbs and, of course, their starting guard Jonah Jackson out there. But Sam Laporta with that calf injury, that could be big.
Yeah, and it's kind of a trade-off with if Laporta is not available, then Amon-Ra St. Brown comes back, and he's one of the most. I mean, he's a very exciting wide receiver to watch, but Laporta is another guy that really makes that offense go. So Bucs are trying to get healthy at corner, obviously, with Jamel Dean, and
Yeah.
Carlton obviously played 2 weeks ago, but I'm sure he's not 100%. And that's a really fun matchup between St. Brown and the Bucs corners, whoever he ends up lining up against, and we'll see if Laporta plays, how the Bucs will match up against him. Odds are it'll probably be either Levante or Devin White, but you never know. Sometimes the Bucs like to have a safety guard their tight end, so
yes,
definitely a matchup to watch.
Yep, Richie P with a $10 super chat. We appreciate that very much. At the same time, Richie, if you have a comment here, he does. Okay, you want to get to that, Matt? Okay.
Yeah,
right.
So Richie, thank you for the super chat. Says, here's a question for Coach Dungy. How close was he / McKay to signing Tampa Bay Tech alumni 6'5", 375 Ted Washington to line up next to Warren Sapp? Would have been today's Cansey and Vita. And then Richie follows up with, just curious because Sapp lined up next to Washington when he went to the Raiders and got 10.5 sacks at the end of his career.
Very astute. I like that. That's really good. That's a great question. And that is one we'll try to get in with Coach Dungy, as we've talked about at the top of the program. We only have about 20-25 minutes with Coach today. He's got a busy schedule, so we'll try to work that in. I'll give you the answer right now. I know that Tony Dungy liked a quicker, athletic, one-gap penetrating style of defensive lineman. That's why you saw them with Brad Culpepper, the undersized kind of nose tackle who actually led the Bucs in sacks, believe it or not, in 1998. That was the year Warren Sapp didn't lead the team in sacks. Sapp kind of took a step back. And I want to say Culpepper had 9 or 9.5 sacks, also had a safety that year. I want to say it was against the Lions too. And then after Culpepper left, they drafted in the first round Booger McFarland, Anthony McFarland from LSU, who was the nose tackle lining up next to Sapp as well. Didn't make it to the Super Bowl that year. He was an injured reserve, the only starter on injured reserve in 2002. And then it was the Buck and Chuck show, as Warren Sapp called it. Buck Gurley and Chartrick Darby were the backup nose tackles that year down the stretch. And actually, both of them rotated and did a good job next to Sapp against the Raiders in that Super Bowl. So Dungy always kind of, and really Monty Kiffin, he always preferred lighter, quicker, faster, one-gap penetrating guys, even at the nose tackle position. But it would have been interesting to see a big, massive guy like Ted Washington in this defense next to Warren Sapp for sure. It would have been interesting, little rewriting of history, if you will, because that was not the type of player that Tony or Monty liked to deploy. But, Ted Washington's a good player.
Yeah. Good question or good comment from Flash Gordon. Says Bucs have various answers to Sam Laporta, Levante David, Devin White, Winfield Jr., Ryan Neal. Yeah, I agree with all of that. I'm curious what they'll do with Antoine Winfield Jr. I personally wouldn't put him on Laporta because I just think Winfield does so much for this team, blitzing-wise, coverage-wise. I mean, it was all on display for that game against the Saints. So I think it's best to kind of free him up as much as as much as the Bucs possibly can.
Yeah. And I think the thing too is Tampa, but we talked about this briefly on Wednesday's show in our Bucs Lions preview. They've done a really good job, Matt, of defending the tight end. It's been a position that has kind of gotten the Buccaneers in years past, but this year, whether it's TJ Hawkinson in week 1, whether it was Cole Kmet from Chicago in week 2, Dallas Goedert in week 3 against the Eagles, Taysom Hill. I know Juwan Johnson was injured early in that Saints game, so it was really Taysom Hill at the tight end position plus Jimmy Graham. Hill had 1 catch for 7 yards. Graham had no catches. So the Buccaneers collectively, whether it's been the linebackers, whether it's been a slot corner, whether it's been a safety coming down, done a really good job of defending the tight end and not really letting that position do any damage this year.
Yeah, that's kind of been one of the keys to success for Tampa Bay early on in this 3-1 start. We have another super chat from Paul, aka Florida Dreamhouse. Thank you for the $10 super chat. Who says, "For Tony, if you have the time, beyond your accomplishments on the field, I applaud you for everything off the field, Tony. I read Uncommon Life each day, and it helps make me a better man."
Yeah, Tony Dungy's he's one of a kind, man. He was the right coach at the right time for the right team. Interesting to note for some of you younger Buccaneer fans out there, from an old guy like me who was here. My first year covering the Bucs was 95. Tony arrived in 96. and he wasn't the first choice. The Glazers wanted to make an impact hire after hiring Sam Weish, or after firing Sam Weish. They ultimately wanted to hire Jimmy Johnson, former Cowboys head coach, and that didn't work out. Jimmy didn't want the job. Then they wanted Steve Spurrier from the Florida Gators, and he turned them down as well. So Tony Dungy, who was the defensive coordinator under in Minnesota under Dennis Green, who was the head coach at the time for the Vikings, he became the third option for the Bucs. And sometimes your first choice doesn't work out, but in this case, the third choice really worked out because he was the right guy for the right team for the right time, and really turned this franchise around.
Yeah, truly was a blessing in disguise. And before Coach Dungy comes onto the show, I want to remind everybody to sign up for Underdog Fantasy with the promo code Pewter. That's PEWTER. Get a first deposit bonus with Underdog. I'll have my show Pewter Picks and Props coming out tomorrow on Friday, and a little more exciting since the Bucs are back. I'll have my prop picks for the Bucs coming up. The Pick'em is so much fun to get involved with. You make at least 2 picks, 1 for each team, but you can make more than that, 5, 6, 7, whatever you want. You can win up to 20 times your money. You just pick the higher or lower on a certain number of stats, whether it's passing yards, fantasy points, rushing yards, whatever it is. It's a great chance to win some money and have some extra fun on watching football. They have it for so many different sports. So you don't even have to just do it for the Bucs Lions game. You could do it for tonight's Thursday night game or whatever it may be. So
I love doing it for Lightning hockey. I like to jump in and bet with the Lightning.
Yeah,
I love the NHL.
I agree. It makes it more fun when it's like 2 other teams you may not know. So use that promo code Pewter. That's PEWTER.
And right now, the man of the hour is here. We're going to welcome former Bucs head coach, Bucs Ring of Honor inductee, and of course, Hall of Fame head coach, Tony Dungy, to the Pewter Report podcast. Coach, I'm joined here with Matt Matera. Welcome to the Pewter Report podcast.
It feels like we're going back in time. This is awesome.
Right? I was just telling everybody.
A few times, right?
Yeah, I started covering the Buccaneers for Buccaneer Magazine back in 1995, and you came on the scene in 1996. Matter of fact, Tony, you looked a little bit different back then. You were wearing creamsicle back in 1996.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Yes.
So what are your thoughts now? The Bucs and the Lions, a team you're very well familiar with your time in the NFC Central. What are your thoughts on this creamsicle throwback week here in Tampa?
You know, it couldn't be more fitting than to do it this week for the Bucs against the Lions. All the battles we had with them back in the day, and it's still, I see that orange and white, and it brings back memories of preparing for Barry Sanders. So, yeah, it couldn't be more fitting.
Yeah, well, you mentioned Barry Sanders, Coach, and actually, I want to say your record, if I did the research correctly, was 6-7 against the Lions. They were a really good team back then. Scott Mitchell with Herman Moore, with Brett Perryman, and of course Barry Sanders. Right? What are some of your memories about facing the Lions? Now, you did get the better of them towards the end. You won 4 of your last 5 games.
Sometime early on, and Barry was tremendous. I had coached against him in Minnesota, and so you think you're ready. And we had a fast defense, but he was something. You could do everything right, and he still found a way to make you miss and make plays. And he was a nightmare. He was a headache. But then 97, that year that we got into the playoffs, we played them early in the season. We held them to 10 yards, I think.
Yes.
Something just ridiculous. And then he came back and got us for a world record in the second game.
Right.
But then the rubber match was the playoff game, and Derek Brooks told me on Monday, he said, "Don't worry, Coach, we got this." And they were ready to go, and we played an outstanding game, held them under 70 yards again, won our first playoff game in a long while. The last game in the old stadium, there it is. And I remember the fireworks going off and our fans just standing there celebrating. One of the best moments of my career, really, one of the most fun moments. Actually, Scott, most fun moment was that Monday before.
Really?
We had played the Bears.
Wow. Okay.
And if we won the game, we were going to have a home playoff game. We didn't know if we were going to be home or away. We knew we were in the playoff. We won the game, came in on Monday, and Joel Glazer came down to my office. He said, we got a few fans at the stadium buying tickets. Would you mind going over? We're going to get orange juice and donuts for them.
Right.
So I rode over with Brian and Joel and thinking I'm going to see 50, 75 fans, and we're going to push around a little bit. The line was around the stadium.
Oh, my gosh.
There must have been 2,000 people there buying tickets.
Yes.
And it was just – I remember sitting with Brian and Joel in the car and said, this is what we talked about. This is what we want to do. And here it is. And it was so much fun to see people excited about Buccaneer football.
It really was. And Coach, I remember after the game, Brad Culper picked up one of those red Bucs flags and was waving it in the end zone. That was wild. And you were there on the USS Bounty, I think, burying Bucko Bruce in the off season, right?
We did. I remember
that
too. We had Hardy Nickerson and Trent Dilfer and Mike Allstott. I think we had a bunch of guys.
Yeah.
We unveiled the new uniforms.
Yeah.
And we symbolically buried Bruce. And it was a sad day in a lot of ways, but people were fired up about the pewter and the new look. But kind of a moment in Buck history was gone at that point.
That's right. Exactly.
Coach, I just want to say it's an honor to get to talk to you right now on our show. And, you were talking about a couple of Hall of Famers. You coached a number of Hall of Famers on your team, such as Sapp, Brooks, Lynch, and Rondé, not to mention Peyton Manning when you were with the Colts. So I'm just curious, when you look at this year's Bucs team or Bucs team from a couple of years ago, who's a player that you didn't get to coach that you wish you had the opportunity to coach?
Oh man, there are several guys that I watched that I really have enjoyed, and I like people that play with heart and play with passion and do their job well. Antoine Winfield Jr.
Yeah. I knew you were going to say that.
I coached against his dad.
Yeah,
and of course, University of Minnesota ties and everything. Yep. So I knew about him. But to watch him play and to hear Coach Bowles and the defensive coaches talk about his preparation and his work ethic and his attitude, I just love watching him. Tristan Wirfs is another guy. Tristan reminds me of Paul Gruber.
Yeah.
Who just go out and do their job, block whoever they put in front of them every time, never say a word, never even get any publicity, just do your job so well. But there's a number of guys that say, if they were back in the day, they definitely could have played with us.
Yeah,
that's
no
great.
Doubt about it.
And speaking of the Hall of Fame, there's another former Bucs player that's not in the Hall of Fame yet, but Simeon Rice, I think, has that Hall of Fame resume and credentials. Do you think he should be a Hall of Famer?
I'll tell you what, it's tough to get in, but when you look at what he's done, the numbers that he put up, playing on an iconic defense, winning a Super Bowl championship, doing it with two different franchises. Those are all the qualities you look for. So I think he's going to get there. It is going to be a little bit difficult. I went through that with some of my Steeler teammates, that you get 4 or 5 guys in and people say, are we going to really put another Buccaneer in?
Right.
But just like they did with Rondé, you have to kind of look away from, don't worry about Lynch and Brooks and Sapp and whoever else is in. Let's just look at this guy's stats and what he did. And I think the voters this past year did that with Rondé, and one day they're going to do that with Simeon and say, let's just look at the numbers and the production, and he deserves to be there.
Yeah. Coach, you stayed in Tampa, right? After you moved on to Indianapolis, your family was here in Tampa. Our daughters went to preschool together back in the day. It was fun seeing you stay here in Tampa, like so many other former Buccaneers players or coaches do as well, right? This is a great place to live. But I'm just curious. I know that you certainly had a very kind of momentous birthday in Tampa when you came back. Buccaneer fans probably didn't like you this night. This was on Monday Night Football, right? On your birthday. You came back in an epic fashion. I remember I had the game story already written on Monday Night Football, and your Colts had an iconic comeback of all time. I had to rewrite the whole game story. Not just me, but Rick Stroud, Roy Cummings, everybody else had to rewrite the whole story. So thanks for a long night.
That was an amazing night. Hard to believe.
2003.
Yeah. So actually the Indianapolis Star had a big article last week about a 20th anniversary and the whole thing. But it was one of those, just, you couldn't storybook script it any better.
Yeah.
Old coach comes back for the first time, defending Super Bowl champions, birthday, Monday night, all of that going on. And I think my players really sensed how much it meant to me.
Yeah.
And I kept saying all week, hey, the focus should be on the players. It's just another game. Oh, no, it's not any different. But they knew.
Yeah.
And I think we came out and we tried too hard. And we made some uncharacteristic mistakes, and we're down 21-0.
Yeah.
And I remember walking in at halftime and saying to myself, Lord, how could it be this bad? How could it be this bad? And at halftime, I said, hey, I don't know that we can win this game, but we certainly can play better than we played the first half. Let's show the country that we're not this bad a football team.
Yeah.
We kind of inch back, and then Rondé Barber intercepts the ball, and it's 35-14. And I went to Tom Moore, and I said, Tom, do you think we should take the first team out? We got to play again in 6 days. Maybe we shouldn't get anybody hurt. And Tom said, there were 4 minutes left. He said, nah, I don't think I'd do that.
Wow.
To taking everybody out. And so we hung with it. We scored. Then we got an onside kick, and we scored again. And once we got within 7 points, I just knew we were going to win. I didn't know how, but I said, hey, we're going to do this. And it was unbelievable birthday celebration in the locker room.
Yeah, that's crazy. Let me ask you, when you go to Indy, and obviously you won a Super Bowl there, made history as the first African-American head coach to win a Super Bowl, right? I mean, that was a historic moment, a great moment for you and for the Colts franchise. Did you root for the Buccaneers in 2002 in the Super Bowl because you had so many former players, or was that a little too close to?
Oh, it was hard. It was bittersweet, Scott, for sure. I wanted to be there with them, but I remember the creamsicle, and I remember starting in the orange, and guys like Mike Allstott and Brooks and Sapp, who were still there. We talked about that, hey, as we want to make the city proud, we want to win, and they had a chance to do that.
Yeah.
And I remember doing a pregame show and saying, hey, the Bucs are going to kill these guys. The Raiders are all passing. There's no way you can just come out and throw the ball against these guys. The speed is going to be too much. And John Lynch called me and said, why are you giving them bulletin board material? I said, John, you guys are going to – this game is not even going to be close.
Yeah.
And I guess that was the beginning of my broadcasting career because it turned out just that way.
Yeah. And how about in 2020? Did you root for the Buccaneers and Tom Brady at that point in time?
That was a tough one for me because I had worked in Kansas City as well and was very, very close to the Hunt family. And now, so I've got 2 franchises that I work for, and they're both in it. So I kind of tried to stay a neutral bystander in that one. But that was a fantastic, and another one where people didn't understand it at the time, but the defense being such a good matchup against that offense. It was a special day, and doing it in the stadium, all those things, it was pretty cool. Yeah.
I'm glad that you brought up Mike Allstott a moment ago, because I think he's an intriguing figure for a discussion about today's NFL, where analytics are so involved. And I do think that they are an important aspect of the game, and people use it. But also at times, I feel like analytics takes a little bit away from the human element of things. You mentioned before about your guys doing a little bit too much. And I think Mike Allstott's a good example of that, because when Mike got into the game, the crowd's going crazy, and it felt like the intensity level just kind of ratcheted up just a little bit more. Could you feel that when you knew that Mike was going to get the football?
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, we drafted Mike in 1996, and we knew he was a good player. We thought he was going to be solid for us, but he was really the heartbeat of the team, and he set the tone offensively. We had some defensive tone setters already, but he set the tone offensively, and he gave us the momentum and the energy. And the box score can't even tell you, what
the
a
impact
3-yard run. How it just reverberated and changed the whole feeling of things. He scored against Minnesota. Diving over, backing up to the 5, running over 2 guys. He scored from the 2-yard line against Washington in the playoff game, and all it says is Mike Allstott 2-yard touchdown run. But no, it was much more than that. It energized the whole stadium, the whole sideline. We felt like we had a chance again, and that's the kind of thing Mike did week in and week out.
Yeah, I totally agree. I love the analytics. I get the science of the game and how it's evolved in that perspective.
I'm glad you do, because I don't. I see these people making
I
decisions based on analytics, and I'm just scratching my head saying, "What are they thinking?"
I say that with this caveat: you can't measure heart, you can't measure momentum at the Indianapolis Combine, right? Those are real, tangible elements of football, physicality. You can't measure that like in the combine drills, right? So I think analytics has its place. But the gut feel, the emotion, the energy, the momentum change, all those things are things that you can't measure on paper or in a spreadsheet.
No, you're right. You talk about, Mike's and what he brought to the table and analytics and everything. The next year's draft, we're looking for a playmaker, and Derek Brooks is in my office every day in January, February, March.
Right.
And we got to get work done. We got to get work done. I'm telling you, Coach, he's special. So I go to the combine, and Ward comes in to meet us, and he is 5'9" and 173 pounds. And I said, "This is the guy Brooks has been talking about." And I asked him and talked to him, asked him a couple questions. And, "Hey, Ward, what are you going to bring to us if we are able to draft you?" And then, he's so humble. And in his soft spot, he just sat there and he's trying to think of a way to say it. And he said, "Well, Coach, do you like touchdowns?"
I do.
I'm small, I know I'm this or that, but I score touchdowns.
Yeah.
And at that point, I said, "That's our guy."
Yeah, absolutely. An instant impact rookie. 1997. Yeah. That's tremendous. Coach, let's kind of shift and talk to you about Todd Bowles, somebody that you're close with and you admire as a fellow defensive-minded head coach. They're not really in vogue anymore. It's always the young hotshot offensive play callers, but Todd's getting it done in Tampa. What do you like about his coaching style, his start to this year, and in this Buccaneer team that you've seen so far?
Well, I like his calmness and his steadfastness, and he has a way that he wants to win. And I remember this offseason when he was talking to David Canales, and I've gotten to know David through a coach's Bible study. And I told Todd, "You're going to like this guy because you guys think alike." And Todd called me back and he said, "You know what? You're right. We're on the same page with how we want to do things." And I just think the Bucs are in good shape because they've got a game plan. And it may not fit everybody else's plan, but how we're going to win games, how we're going to practice, what we're going to do, the type of guys that we're going to have, the way we're going to play, it's going to be hard-nosed, it's going to be tough, it's going to be physical, and people are going to have to beat the Buccaneers. They're not going to give games away. And I like the direction we're going.
Yeah, you wrote sorry, excuse me.
Yeah.
You wrote the forward to Dave and his wife Lizzie's book. So you just talk about getting to know him and the job that you think he's done so far as the offensive coordinator of the Bucs.
Yeah. I actually got to meet him while I was broadcasting. We had a bunch of Seattle games when they were really good, and he's coaching the receivers, and then he coaches the quarterbacks, and he's develops a relationship with Russell Wilson. But through it all, when you talk football with him, it's fundamentals. It's doing things the right way. It's utilizing your people, getting the best out of everybody, making sure everybody contributes, all the things that I believe in. And he's a fun guy, but he's a no-nonsense guy. And he just, in that way, he reminded me of Todd. I said, I know these guys are going to hit it off. So it's been great to see what they've done. I think the offense is just going to get better and better. Baker Mayfield, all I'm reading about is, he surprised people. We didn't think he was going to play this well. Baker Mayfield is a good player, and getting in a good system, getting good people around you, I think the country's going to get to see that.
Yeah. So what's the key for the Bucs beating this tough Lions team, right? The Lions, I don't think they're a joke. I mean, they're 4-1 for a reason. You don't go into Kansas City and Arrowhead and defeat the defending Super Bowl champions in a fluke. They won with hard-nosed defense, a pick six. They did a good job of kind of shutting down Kansas City's offense, got some touchdowns on the board themselves. This is a team in Detroit, Tony, that they score touchdowns. They don't kick field goals. They have like 18 touchdowns and 5 field goals, I think, this year. And it's 8 touchdowns, 7 field goals for the Bucs. So the Bucs have their work cut out for them, I think, on Sunday.
They do. Detroit is a good team. Dan Campbell has brought a confidence to them, a winning attitude. Again, a no-nonsense type attitude. Their defense is a little better than people think. They've got some playmakers on offense. Jared Goff is playing outstanding football because he hasn't had to do it all.
Right.
He's got a nice running game. He's got receivers that can run after the catch. He's got a defense where if it's 3rd and 8 and it's not there, he doesn't feel like, I've got to try to force one in because if we punt, I might not get the ball back. No, he's saying, okay, if it's not there, I'll trust my defense. So they're playing good, solid football. It's going to be a great game, a fundamental game, and it's going to be physical. So I'm looking forward to it.
Coach, I think that people, our age, the older generation, maybe we have a little less patience these days, but maybe we also have a little bit more patience in some areas. I remember, there was a head coach in Tampa that kind of stood there with his arms crossed and all stoic, and this new guy kind of reminds me.
I recognize that pose. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. But the thing is when I coached, my kids in Pop Warner, I was kind of a fiery animated guy. So I was more of like the John Gruden or Bruce Arians coaching style. But Coach, you proved that having that calm, even keeled demeanor, there's a time and a place for that, and it can win. You did that right here in Tampa. You did it in Indy. Should Buccaneer fans, maybe the newer generation that didn't latch on to the Buccaneers necessarily while you were coaching, maybe give Todd a little bit of a break and understand that there's more ways to coach on the sidelines, and you can still motivate people without having to yell and scream.
You absolutely can. And what people don't realize, I think sometimes, is they see you there on the sideline not reacting the way they might.
Yeah.
But most of the time you're thinking about the next player, the next situation. Okay, this happened and it was bad and we can't do anything about that. What do we have to do next? And you may be talking, you're listening to one of the coaches in the box with the next play. You're trying to move ahead. And that's what I always did. And I think Todd does the same thing. But a lot of times we want to see that demonstration of, okay, I would definitely get after someone. Well, sometimes you can do that without, making a scene. And I think Todd does that really, really well. His guys are motivated. And I know I used to tell that to owners when they questioned me. I had 4 or 5 interviews before Mr. Glazer hired me. And that was the question a lot of times. Well, you don't seem like you're, whatever. And I would always say, don't watch me, watch my team. Look at my team and see what they're doing and see if you like what my team is doing. And if you do, that's all you need to know.
Yeah, that's great. I wanted to ask you real quick, just we have a couple more minutes left here with you, and I appreciate your time, Tony. One of the guys I think that's missing in the Bucs Ring of Honor is Hardy Nickerson. What are your thoughts on that? I know you don't get a vote, but you're a Bucs Ring of Honor member.
No, I would agree with that. You talk about leadership and guys who made a difference. And Hardy, you have to remember, Hardy came here and signed here when it wasn't popular.
Yeah.
He didn't come in the middle of this ring and I'm going to add to this defense.
Yeah.
No, he came and I want to make a difference and I want to get this team going. And he went through some lean years, 95, 96, and he was definitely our leader. And so not only play well and go to Pro Bowls, but the way he led, I would definitely vote for that.
Well, and the other thing too is that was really one of your big free agent signings was re-signing him.
Oh, re-signing, yes. Yeah. I remember one after I got the job, Rich McKay, one of the first things he told me, he said, you and Lauren have to go out to dinner with Hardy and Amy Nickerson. We got to keep them here. He may be headed someplace else. I don't know. It doesn't look good right now, but we've got to keep him. And we went to Oyster Catchers and we talked about being together in Pittsburgh and what we did and how I was going to do it. And fortunately, he had played for me, so he knew how I was going to do it. And I said, Hardy, we're going to have a great defense, and you're going to be the key figure. You've got to help direct this for the young guys. And he took that challenge and stayed, and he was great for us.
Yeah,
Tony, I was curious when you come into this situation, like when you get hired by the Bucs to become the head coach, and your job is to kind of turn around a team that had been losing, and you eventually got them to be a sustainable winner. Was there anything that you could point to, whether it's like the atmosphere in the locker room and the camaraderie, that really helped getting the Bucs on track outside of just having great players and Hall of Fame players?
Yeah, no, it was that. It was the unity, the chemistry, the togetherness, the determination to stick through it in tough times. I kind of quoted them a quote that my first coach, Chuck Knoll, always told us: champions don't do extraordinary things. Champions do the ordinary things better than everyone else. Yeah. And this team had talented players, and they had guys who could make highlight reel plays. I said, what we've got to do is make the everyday plays. We've got to practice well. We've got to play at our level every week. If we do that, we're going to be winners. And it took the guys a little while to buy into that, but when they did, I think that's what we had. We had a team that played very close to their peak week in and week out.
Yep. Coach, last question for me, and I do appreciate your time very much.
Yes.
You've been very cordial in your relationship with Jon Gruden, right? And that was a kind of a tough transition, right, from 2001 to 2002, et cetera. You did have a nice birthday at his expense, though, in 2003. We talked about that earlier. But I wanted just to ask you, forgiveness is a lost art in today's society. You initially came out, I remember, in Jon Gruden's defense over the leaked email scandal that cost him his job in Las Vegas. There's no excuse for the hurtful things that were said in those emails. I think everybody can agree with that. And the Blazers promptly removed him from the Bucs Ring of Honor. And I've always wanted just to ask you, as a Ring of Honor member, did the Blazers do the right thing, or was it done too hastily where the opportunity for forgiveness didn't have a chance to materialize? Removing someone from the Ring of Honor is a big deal. And I know that hurt Jon, but I'm just curious about, because it was done so quickly, just your thoughts on his removal from that.
It was done quickly, Scott, but it wasn't done without thought.
Yeah.
And a couple of the Glazers reached out to me and kind of told me their thought process in it. Mm-hmm. And the thought process was not that we're not going to forgive, not that none of that, but the Ring of Honor needs to be special. And there is something in there about honor. And because of that, that's why they did it. And hopefully those fences can be mended, and Jon would feel the same kind of comfortableness coming back that I feel coming back. But I do understand why they did it. Mm-hmm. And I kind of agreed with it. But I agree with you. And I came out on our show and said, okay, Jon Gruden, these emails were X number of years ago, shouldn't have happened. Yeah. But I've done things in my life that I wish I could take back.
Right.
And so if someone admits they're wrong and says, hey, I'm sorry, then we do need to forgive, and we do need to move forward from it.
It's also interesting to know, too, that the Blazers did keep the Jon Gruden Super Bowl statue inside the team facility. So it's not like they're trying to whitewash this team.
Yes. Hey, we're very happy. We're thankful we won a Super Bowl. Jon was a big part of it. Ring of Honor is something special, and this kind of tainted that honor. So we're going to remove that. But we're not going to say Jon Gruden didn't work here and we don't want to have anything to do with him. So I really applaud the way they handled it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. Coach, I know you're working for NBC Sports now, doing a heck of a job. I love watching you and your commentary, as do I think all Buccaneer fans. Is there a rooting interest in this game on Sunday for you? You're supposed to be impartial.
I know I always try to be impartial, but I do. I love Todd. I love the way they're approaching these things. Baker Mayfield is my younger son's favorite player. So
there you go. Yeah. All right.
I have a lot of Buccaneer interest. And I always had that painful memories of Detroit getting the best of us a few times early on. So I'm definitely hoping that the Bucs can pull this one out.
And do it for the creamsicles, right, Coach?
Yes, that would be great to see a win. Because if I remember right, the last time we played the Lions in the creamsicle, it wasn't pretty. So
that's true. As a matter of fact, the Bucs, and this goes back, into the Sam Weiss days too, but the Bucs are actually 0-5 against the Lions in creamsicle.
I can believe it, because I know I lost a couple. I contributed to that.
Just means they're due.
Yeah, we are due. We are due. Yes, sir.
Exactly. Well, Coach Tony Dungy, you're welcome back here on the Pewter Report podcast at any time. We enjoyed having you. I enjoyed coaching you.
Yes.
I was a young Cub reporter in my second year covering the Buccaneers when you came on the scene. You taught me a lot about integrity, about reporting, and just about, just manhood. And you set just such a great example, not just for your players, but I think for Buccaneer fans and everybody that was in your orbit as well, including myself. So just appreciate you very much, Coach.
Thank you for your time, Coach.
That. I'm going to make a prediction.
Okay.
I believe that we're going to get flexed to a Buccaneers game Sunday night, either in November or December.
There you go.
If we do, let's do this again.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
You got it, Coach. You're absolutely welcome back here at any time. Coach Tony Dungy, thanks for joining the Pewter Report podcast. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, Coach.
Thanks, guys.
There's Coach Dungy right there. I got a chance to see him in Canton, Ohio with Warren Sapp, Rondé Barber, Derek Brooks, and John Lynch. Boy, what great memories right there. And Matt, I think it's going to be a while until there's another Bucs Hall of Famer, because we talked about that kind of decade-long malaise that was over this franchise for a while, during the post John Gruden era. But Mike Evans, maybe Simeon Rice. We'll
hopefully,
see.
what Coach Dungy said about Simeon Rice comes to premonition, that eventually they'll realize how great Simeon was. So hopefully he's right about that. But yes, Mike Evans might be the next one that Bucs media will be making a trip to Canton for.
Yeah, well, this was great. I mean, this was fantastic. Loved having Coach on. We're going to go a little bit over time here. We usually stop at around an hour, but we're going to do a little bit more because you guys have some great comments here. We want to get to it. Remember, if you are late to the show, we have all of our shows, all of our Pewter Report podcasts archived for your viewing pleasure at Pewter Report TV. That is our YouTube channel. We want you to subscribe to it. It's free. Just hit the subscribe button, and then also like and comment our videos. When you do that, it boosts our algorithm with the YouTube audience. It gets us in front of more Pewter people like you guys, and we love that. So don't worry that you're late. Sometimes we're late too, but
we're usually a minute or two late. The only thing that you would miss out on technically is an opportunity to be eligible to win a free Celsius, which a free case of Celsius, not just one can, a whole case of them. And we got to give a shout out again to yesterday's winner that we announced earlier on the show today. That was Paul, aka Florida Dreamhouse, for his $5 super chat. That was: roses are red, violets are blue. My Celsius of choice is orange. How about you? So we still have a couple more super chats to get to. If you're late to the show and you still want to be eligible to win a free Celsius, any super chat of any denomination, doesn't matter if it's $1 or $75, makes you eligible to win a free case of Celsius. We'll ship it right to your residence. And we're going to pick a winner that we'll announce on Sunday's Pewter post-game show. And it's just based on whether it's the best comment, question. A little bit of humor is fun too. The first question that won on Monday's show that we announced yesterday was about what Baker Mayfield has to do in order to get re-signed with the Bucs after this season. And then Paul, a little bit more of the... What's up?
Jefferson Tugboat.
Yeah, and then Paul won today with a little bit more humor and a little more fun with it. But we welcome all different types of comments, everything like that. Shout out to Paul super chatting us again today. Want to make sure I didn't miss any. Jarvel 5, thank you for the $10 super chat, who says, great to see Tony on here. He was an exceptional guest.
Yeah, he was great. Matt, he wants to come back. Now,
he wants to come back.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing for when you have a player or a coach on, they'll say, hey, appreciate it. Hey, coach, appreciate your time, or the player, hey, player, we appreciate your time, whatever. And then they reply and say, yeah, sure, no problem. Yeah, I enjoyed it, whatever. Rachaad White, when we had him on, he actually texted me before the show was over saying, thanks for having me on. I thought that was cool. But to have Coach Dungy during the show say, hey, if this game gets flexed to Sunday night, I want to be on again. So let's do it. So that was fantastic.
So Jarvel said, as we said, great to see Tony on here. I became a Bucs fan watching the 99 season NFC playoff game between the Rams, Bert Emanuel catch game. I was 6 years old and been a fan ever since.
That's
Go
awesome.
Bucs. Great story. Yeah, great trip down memory lane. Eventually, the Bucs went on to win the Super Bowl. I can't forget Salty Buccaneer, who is a consistent super chatter for PewterReport.com. Thank you for the super chat of $4.99. Salty Buccaneer says, Coach, can we get your quick Simeon Rice elevator pitch for his Hall of Fame candidacy? I know you can make a great case for him. Heart, love you, TD.
Yeah, I think you did, right? You brought up the question. Great question. And I think that Coach said the sack numbers are there. The Super Bowl is there. He did it with two different franchises, right? You kind of saw that with with DeMarcus Ware, right, playing for the Broncos
Dallas.
and the Cowboys, right, and still putting up Super Bowl caliber numbers. And I want to say Zyon has better sack numbers than DeMarcus Ware. So yeah, why not? I mean, I think the case eventually will get made. It took Rondé a while to get in. John Lynch wasn't the first ballot Hall of Fame guy like Dungy and Sapp and Brooks were, but there's hope for Zyon. I wouldn't say his candidacy is extinguished at all.
Yeah, and you know what would be really cool too? Let's just say hypothetically he does get in. You have to hold that Bucs defense. It's already held in pretty high regard, but
yeah,
I don't know. Like, I'm sick and tired of the 85 Bears. We get it. The 85 Bears won the Super Bowl. We know.
Yeah.
They don't.
Right.
All everyone talks about is the 85 Bears, but like
I know.
that defense, the Ravens defense that beat the Giants in Tampa, ironically enough.
Yeah.
Like those duos, great defenses. The Bucs, that Super Bowl winning Bucs team has to be right there with them too. If you have 5 Hall of Famers, if Zyon Rice gets in, 5 Hall of Famers on that defense, I mean, how could they not be up there as one of the greatest defenses in the history of the game?
Yeah, speaking of Zyon Rice, and in my opinion, if all the Buccaneers I covered, if you're going to start a franchise with one guy, sorry, Warren, it's Tom Brady. I mean, he's the GOAT, right? But Warren Sapp would be number 2 because it starts in the trenches. Sapp was one of probably the top 5 defensive tackles of all time. But here's the thing. Out of every athlete, every NFL player I've covered in Tampa Bay, Zyon Rice was by far the best athlete. Matt, I saw him do 2-a-days in Tampa. And in the afternoon practice, and this is in Orlando, this is in the baking heat of Celebration, Florida, he would do a morning practice, full pads and everything. And then you have your lunch break and you come back out in the afternoon, have that afternoon practice. Then he would do wind sprints after that second practice, and he was bouncing like a gazelle. Like he never got tired. I've never seen an athlete with as much juice as Zyon Rice had. He was always in peak physical condition. He was just absolutely an absolute freak of an athlete. And he would spend, after that second practice, he would spend 20 minutes with some of the younger guys, the Ellis Wims and all that stuff, working their pass rush moves. And he looked like he was ready for a third practice, Matt. It was crazy.
Yeah, it's so funny you say that because I want to say it was probably 2021 because it was when the Bucs drafted Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, and Zyon Rice was out at a training camp practice, and he met with JTS after. They had a one-on-one conversation. We were all there to see it.
Yeah.
And everyone, including myself, was like, damn, like Zyon Rice looks like he's still, like, if you didn't see Zyon Rice and you were like, oh, that's a former player, you probably think like, oh, did he just retire like a season or two ago? No, he last played in 2007.
I know.
So we're talking about over a decade since he's been in the league, and he still looks like that he can play. And, it just speaks to how when he was in the NFL, just the peak tip-top physical condition that he was in.
You're right. And I think, too, that when you look at the Super Bowl teams, and as King Fax is talking about here, I'm sorry, King Cook, you were King Fax with this one, buddy. The 85 Bears, the 2000 Ravens, I think that's where just being in that smaller market in Tampa, a third franchise in the state, right? You got Miami to the south, Jacksonville to the north, and here's little old Tampa Bay over here. I think that's where the Buccaneers kind of get lost in the shuffle, right? Because it's not Chicago with the Bears. Yeah, Bears. And even the Ravens are in that Washington, D.C. Metroplex orbit there. So I think it's really just kind of the national media that parks itself in Philadelphia, New York, and Chicago, and L.A. They look at the bigger market teams, right? And it wasn't really until in that Super Bowl, the Bucs got their props for sure. But you were here for it, Matt. In 2020, Tom Brady arrives. Everything changed in Tampa Bay.
It did. It really did.
The media room at One Buccaneer Place was always full of national media, not just the local crowd.
And then the Lightning started winning. The Rays went to the World Series.
Right.
The Bucs won a Super Bowl. So, just truly, truly crazy.
Oh, boy. This is a good one right here from Charlie Abrams. He wants either you or I to answer this. Tristan Wirfs versus Zyon Rice.
Man.
Whoa.
That's a tough one. My mind is blown. Yeah. Oh. So, to be fair, I wasn't watching Zyon Rice like every single day. It's just the nature. I didn't grow up in Tampa. Yeah. I'm a little bit younger. So, I would have to go back and watch more Simeon Rice tape, but like Tristan Wirfs might be the greatest offensive tackle in the history of the Bucs. It's hard to go against him, and maybe I'm just a little bit more new school in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, there's some recency bias for me too.
Yeah, recency bias.
I will say this: if it's first or second down, I'm taking Tristan all day long. Okay, I just am, and that's not hating on Simeon. On third downs, though, something changed in Simeon. That was the hunting down. It was just different on third down. You could feel Simeon. He made his presence felt on third downs. And that was a money down for him, and he took it very personal. And I wonder, out of all those 100+ sacks, how many came on third down? I'm certainly going to guess more than 50 or 60% for sure. It might even be close to 70%. And of course, that's when a lot of sacks do happen, right? Obvious passing downs. But so I'm going to say Tristan overall, but I'll give third down to Simeon. So,
okay.
Tristan.
All right. So
you get 2 out of 3. But
yeah, a little bit of a best of 3.
I got to give Simeon
best of that's how they should decide it in this hypothetical. Right. Best of 3, Simeon.
Yeah, but man, if we could go and bring Simeon in his prime now versus Tristan, that would be the training camp one-on-one battle to see every day.
Yeah. That would be fantastic. Scott, this no pressure here, but this one's for you.
Do you know who was the person that wanted to trade for Rice? Plus, if you pronounce my name wrong, do I automatically win the case of Celsius? John Castle, Spilotopoulos. I'm going to go with that.
Spilotopoulos. I think
it's Spilotopoulos.
Because he's been on before, and I've tried to pronounce it. I think it's Spilotopoulos.
Okay. Spilotopoulos. Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
See, I can see now. It just when I put these on, I get the little reflection, so I go blind. Just for you Bucs fans, you Pewter people. Laugh out loud. Great freaking interview. That's a great question. Believe it or not, they didn't trade for Simeon Rice. They actually signed him in free agency.
Even better.
Yeah. So they courted Simeon, and they had Dungy and Kiffin and Rod Marinelli went out there. I think Brooks and Lynch were there, and they courted Simeon. And that was what sealed the deal was getting him, just saying play next to Sapp and play in front of Lynch and Brooks. We got this guy, Rondy Barber's pretty good too on the outside. So it didn't take a bunch of arm twisting, but Rod Marinelli and Monty Kiffin really put the screws to Simeon and said, you're the missing link. Like, you're the guy that's going to get us to the Super Bowl and win. And Simeon came in 2001, and that was unfortunately Tony's last year. They ran into that Philadelphia Eagles buzzsaw that they had in years past in the playoffs. But the next year, it all changed. So
whether it's Simeon Rice or Shaq Barrett, the Bucs know how to sign free agent pass rushers.
Yes,
for sure. A couple more super chats before we wrap up the show. Paul, aka Florida Dreamhouse. Thank you for the $2 super chat. Who says Tony Dungy is a good man. Fantastic interview. Thank you very much. I thought it went quite well. Maybe I'm a little bit biased, but loved having Tony Dungy on. I'm rooting for a Sunday night flex game for.
I am too.
Would love to have Tony back on.
Simeon was an absolute stellar guy. That's for sure. I loved talking to Simeon. It's funny because his locker was next to Sapp's, and Sapp, you did not know which version of Warren Sapp you were going to getting. The fun, jovial guy, but that could turn on the wrong question at the drop of a hat. He could go into a surly SOB mode real quick. And with Simeon always had a smile on his face, and he talked in Simeon speak. He was like from Planet Simeon. There's nobody else like him, and he would say things like, "He's like, oh man, like it's going to be intergalactic facing Michael Vick this week." Just things like that with a smile on his face. He was one of a kind. I did get into a Simeon Rice one time. This is a funny, quick little story I'll share with you. Back when Buccaneer Magazine / Pewter Report was partnered with the Authentic Team Merchandise Buccaneer Heaven store way back in the day, this is probably 2003, we had scheduled Simeon to come in for an autograph signing. And we had literally hundreds of fans like out the door and around the building waiting for Simeon. And it's like, I think he was scheduled to come from like 6 to 8, and it was 6:05 and Simeon wasn't there. And so I called Simeon and I said, "Hey, where are you?" And he's like, oh man, do I have to do that today? And I said, yeah, you have to do this today. We've advertised it. We've promoted it. We have literally hundreds of people here. You need to do it. He's like, can I reschedule? No, Simeon, get your butt to Buccaneer heaven right now. And then I was like, God, I can't believe I'm saying this to Simeon Rice,
Yeah, I mean.
And he's like, okay, I'll be there in 20 minutes. And he showed up in 20 minutes and he was fantastic. He was great, and he was fantastic for the crowd. But sometimes, when you kind of get in a player's face a little bit, you don't know how it's going to go. But yeah, Simeon, stand-up guy for sure.
Salty Buccaneer says, Scott, who was your first creamsicle jersey bought?
I only purchased one. I have to remain objective and neutral, although I'm going to readily admit that that guy right there, Rondé Barber, he's my all-time favorite Buccaneer. I'm friends with Rondé now because I covered every minute of his career. But the only creamsicle jersey I purchased, more just for nostalgia than anything else, was Warren Sapp's. Warren and I are friends to this day. Weren't always that way when I was, reporting on him. We had our wars and clashes, which were kind of fun. We laugh and look back at that now. Sapp will say he won all the battles, and I'm sure he believes that. But I got the better of him a couple of times. But Sapp, I just respect. I'm a defensive-minded guy. It all starts in the trenches. Yep. I coach defensive line. It's my favorite position, whether it's end or tackle. And I have it in my garage somewhere. I probably should put it up on the wall somewhere.
Yeah, good answer. Good answer. Shaggy says, thank you for the super chat, says, best Buccaneers free agent acquisition, Tom Brady doesn't count. And I don't think Gronk should count either because Gronk doesn't come if Tom Brady's not there. I think, and again, I'll keep this more towards the current team. Shaq Barrett, I think, absolutely has to be up there for the price that they first got him at and what he did. I think Shaq definitely should be up there.
Yep.
Who else? But yeah,
I think it's Shaq and Simeon. I think you're right. I think it's those two guys, and I would probably give the edge to Shaq just because it was a diamond in the rough.
Yeah.
Like 1 year,
like no one saw that coming.
Couple $1 million prove it deal. Nobody saw it coming except Jason Light and John Spytek, who was in the Denver organization, who said, "Give this guy a chance." He's buried behind Von Miller and Bradley Chubb. And
then this one from John Spilatopoulos. It says, thank you for the super chat. Says, dang it, you guys said it right. Oh, well, LOL. But I do have a question. Are you surprised Shaq Barrett didn't get to be a captain? Very good question.
That's a very good question.
Yeah.
Wow, man, great question.
It's one of those where he's very deserving to be a captain.
Yes.
Probably on many other teams, he should be a captain. It's just, Levante's been there for so long. Devin was already a captain for quite a while. Antoine's kind of the future of this team. Yeah. And Vita's already been established as a captain. There just wasn't enough room necessarily, but Shaq Barrett is still very much a leader on this team.
Yes.
And that's something that Baker spoke about. A lot of the other players spoke about. Like, you don't have to just have the C, maybe it's for Celsius, but you don't have to just have the C on your jersey to be a leader. Shaq is absolutely a leader of this team, especially among the outside linebackers. So he may not have it on his jersey, but that doesn't take away anything of what he means to this team.
Yeah, I would say Brad Johnson, also a really good free agent signing for the Buccaneers. Yeah. They don't win the Super Bowl without the trigger man of that offense, right? They had all the defensive players in mind, and you say that because they had Trent Dilfer. They couldn't get there with him. They had Sean King. They couldn't get there with him. So I think that was big. And Ndamukong Suh, listen, Jason Light took a lot of heat for cutting a very popular fan favorite, 6-time Pro Bowler, and Gerald McCoy, whose body was breaking down. And then all of a sudden, Suh comes in. What was his reputation, Matt? Never missed a game outside of a suspension. Yeah. And that was the case. Benson Jackson, too. Yeah, another great
good
sign.
One as well.
Yeah.
So many great questions. And John also says, I would give it to Hardy Nickerson. No one wanted to come to Tampa until he came.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he was really the OG free agent signing. I mean, Tony was right. And listen, Hardy came for the money. He did. He was a little bit of a mercenary, but he didn't come here and just collect a check either. He came here, wanted to change the culture, got into a fist fight with Broderick Thomas in the locker room and said, there's a new sheriff in town, and it's me. And I know I'm new here, but we're going to change the culture. And Lynch was already here. Lynch was a Buccaneer in 1993. Brooks and Sapp came along in 95 and they just bought in, and gosh, that quartet right there, that it became a 5-finger death punch when Rondé Barber arrived in 97 and not in 97, but in 99 when Rondé became Rondé. it was good times. It really was. It was fun coaching this team. I know Tony had a lot of fun doing it. It was a rebuild, man. It was from the bottom up. I mean, you look at that NFC Central division. You had Brett Favre and the Packers on top. You had Dante Culpepper, Randall Cunningham with the Vikings. You had Scott Mitchell. I mean, that was a prolific offense in Detroit. Barry Sanders, Herman Moore, Brett Perriman. Chicago was formidable. That defense. They always had Neil Anderson, a good ground game. The Buccaneers, it was tough sledding. They were the cellar dweller for a lot of years in the Central.
Well, it's been a great trip down memory lane from stories from Tony Dungy. Scott, you had a lot of great stories too. I've never heard that Simeon Rice story before about the autograph signing, which is so funny because you've told a lot of great stories to me both on the show and off the show.
I'm old, Matt. I'm old. I forget some stories sometimes, and then it just comes to me. So,
and I'm sure there'll be more trips down memory lane on Sunday when the Bucs are wearing the creamsicle jersey.
Yes.
So this is a great time to remind everybody that the Pewter Game Day show is returning again this Sunday. We were off last week because the Bucs didn't have a game. So there's no Pewter Game Day to do, but it will be returning this Sunday. We'll do a pregame show an hour before kickoff. That'll start at 3:25. And then don't switch that dial once the game gets started because we will have our live in-game reactions, analysis, and everything else in between. I'll be on, reacting to everything that's going on with the Bucs games. And the way they've been playing, it's been a lot of fun, whether it's the Shaq Barrett pick 6, the Mike Evans huge game, beating the Saints, Devin Tompkins touchdown. Been a lot of awesome things to really talk about on the show, and I've had a great time. So the Pewter Game Day show starts at 3:25 with an hour pregame, and then the Pewter Game Day show gets going with the live reactions and everything at 4:25. We'll also have the Pewter Post Game show after, so make sure you're following us on all of our social media. That's when we'll announce when we're doing the Pewter Post Game show. Follow us at Pewter Report on X, Threads, Facebook, and Instagram, and of course our YouTube channel where we have all great content. Shout out to Josh Capo, had a great, fantastic video with the film down at Dave Canals.
You gotta watch that. Great stuff. It's on Pewter Report TV.
Yeah, it's definitely recommend watching. It's on Pewter Report TV. So please follow, like, and subscribe. Leave a comment to this YouTube channel. It really helps grow our YouTube, which we love bringing all the content to you guys. So that's going to do it for us on today's episode. It's been the greatest episode of all time. So much fun talking to everybody. So much fun talking to Tony Dungy. So that'll do it for us. For Tony Dungy, for Scott Reynolds, I'm Matt Matera saying thanks everybody for watching, and we will see you on Sunday for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.